Hi, I'm John Fishbein, Senior Program Manager at Technical Services Center. I also staff the GFOA's Budget Committee, and that's how I got to know Matt Brown from DC Water. And today we're going to have some discussions on the budget. So Matt, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Thanks, John. Good to talk to you. My name is Matt Brown. I'm the Executive Vice President for Finance, Procurement, and CFO at DC Water. I've been at DC Water for nearly 3 years. We provide drinking water to 700,000 residents of DC and wastewater services to the District of Columbia as well as the region.
When we talked last week, we were talking about COVID-19 and some of the events going on in Washington, D.C., and I think we discussed, could it get any worse? And I think it did a little bit. Before we get into the budget topic, how are things now a little bit in Washington, D.C.? Have they calmed down a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there was obviously an incident on Monday with the protesters. Since then, people have been in the streets, taking advantage of their First Amendment rights and making their views known. And we at DC Water certainly support that. Are concerned by what's been going on, but believe that meaningful change is possible, especially with the kinds of crowds that you've seen out on the streets and really voicing what I think are legitimate concerns that have been long-standing.
How are you communicating with your staff at the moment?
So we operate a wastewater treatment plant. We also have water and sewer field operations as well as administrative staff. So staff are communicating in a variety of ways. We're in a frontline essential service. And so we have employees who are coming in, the operational employees. We've put them on A and B shifts, so we've tried to keep people apart and allow them to socially distance and also keep crews separated. And so that's how our operations staff are mainly working. Administrative staff are primarily working from home right now. As fortune would have it, we were an early adopter of Microsoft Teams. We had Microsoft Teams implemented prior to the beginning of COVID, and that's for us. It's been a great tool. It's been great to be able to collaborate via technology, to be able to see people. We're even installing a new ERP system right now, and we're concerned for a while that we may need to pause the whole thing. But implementation continues, and communication's primarily done through Microsoft Teams and cell phones and those sorts of things.
Getting down to basics, when's your fiscal year beginning?
It begins in October, so it parallels the federal fiscal year.
So what have you been doing a little bit in the meantime with your current budget? How have you been handling that?
Sure. So while our fiscal year begins in October, we've already adopted the budget for next fiscal year, for the fiscal year that begins in October. Our budget is included with the District of Columbia's budget and they sit down to Capitol Hill. So we adopt our budget early. The item that isn't finalized though is our rates. We're primarily supported with retail and wholesale rates that we charge our customers, and we have put forward a 2-year proposal for retail water and sewer rates, and that has not yet been adopted by our board. We've delayed that rate making process. We have a strong history of going to the community and getting public input on our rates. And we do that through a series of town hall meetings. So we did one in each of the 8 wards in the District of Columbia. So those are traditionally in-person meetings where we talk about our initiatives, our challenges, and the things that we're doing at DC Water. We've delayed all of those, and we're currently scheduling those. There will still be one in each of the 8 wards, but those meetings will be done virtually rather than in person. And then we're also taking a look at the current year budget and trying to react to what we see in consumption declines or water usage.
For your upcoming budget, are you proposing rate increases or keeping rates the same?
We are. There are the rate increases that were proposed and were discussed by our board in January and February. In addition to just the cost of wastewater treatment and employees and contractual services costs increasing, one of the big initiatives that we have right now is to invest in our water and sewer infrastructure. We have a very large wastewater treatment plant, and we've made a lot of investments in that over the last several years. We're also, in 2030, we'll be complete with our consent decree program, but certainly we're over the peak with regards to the consent decree program. And so with the board's support, we're turning our attention to what we call small diameter water mains and then the sewer infrastructure that's in the street. It's very, very old, and some of it has a median age of nearly 80 years. Some of the water infrastructure was installed before the Civil War began, and so we want to reduce the risk of system failure and invest in those assets. So that's one of the reasons for the rate increase.
Your revenues generated from, consumption and fees and the rates and so on, is that just operating, or does that also support some of your capital?
It also supports our capital. So we borrow, like a municipal government, we issue tax-exempt bonds to pay for some of our program, but all of the revenue is generated from the rates.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about consumption. What's been the decline so far since COVID-19?
Sure, thanks. That is something that we've been sitting on.
I don't know if you want to thank me for that question.
We've certainly talked about it a lot. So we see consumption. The way we track our consumption and our revenues is really in sort of three different places. We have meters that we can read daily, AMI meters that transmit the consumption daily, so we can see what's going on with consumption. The next step is when we bill, when our customer service department puts out a bill for that consumption. And finally, we've been monitoring cash every single day. It's the most anticipated email of the day for me is the amount of cash that we've received, because that means our customers are paying. Beginning in the middle of March, we saw an immediate decline in revenue, and it's bounced around a little bit, but overall, the drop in consumption seems to be about 9%. And while we've seen some increases in our residential and multifamily customers, condo buildings, apartment buildings, things like that, we've seen about a decline of about a third in our commercial consumption. And that makes sense with restaurants operating at less than capacity, at hotels at less than capacity. But that's the thing that I worry about the most, is how long that drop in commercial consumption will continue.
And commercial makes up 1/3 of your revenues, right?
Yeah, it's about a third of our volumetric usage, so of our consumption. We do have a combination of fixed and variable charges. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the commercial is about a third of the volumetric usage.
I assume most of the late payments you're getting are from the residential, not commercial, right? Or are you getting some from commercial as well?
Yeah, so we've done a couple things. Number one, because this is a public health crisis, we made a decision early on that we weren't going to disconnect any customers for non-payment. We've also gone back and we've reconnected customers who had previously been disconnected for non-payment, and we're waiving all late charges. So we have seen an increase in delinquencies. We've seen it in our household customers as well as multifamily customers.
So what are you doing this year? You're below your budget this year. What are you doing to try and balance the budget, or are you hitting your reserve?
Sure. So we anticipate that the revenue decline could be about $35 million, which is about 5% of our overall revenues. We are a conservative organization. I tell the board that all the time, the board of directors who I report to, through the CEO, that we budget conservatively. Fortunately, in the February-March timeframe, we were ahead in a number of categories, or we were behind on the expenditure side. Yeah, exactly. Our CEO has challenged us all to ensure that every time we fill a position, that it's a position that's needed for the success of the organization. And so we're going to have a positive variance in personnel services just because of that policy that was in place prior to COVID. We haven't seen the kind of energy and chemical cost pressures that we've seen in the past. And we've just seen a reduction in expenditures, sort of a natural reduction because employees can't travel right now for conferences and papers and training. Because we've split our crews into A and B shifts, less preventive maintenance is done. Okay. And so some of our costs have come down. And then we challenged our department directors to only advance critical purchases. Of that $35 million shortfall in revenues, we've come up with initiatives to close about $22 million, and the remainder will be a decrease in PAYGO for the capital program. So that's how we'll balance the budget.
Okay. How have you been dealing with your upper management and your executive director and your council or your management there?
We've been working pretty closely. It's been done obviously electronically through Teams, but we've tried to present the same information that we present to the board to those internally, let them know where we are with our revenues, and challenge them mainly through the budget office to respond to those challenges. I made a presentation to the finance committee about a week and a half ago and laid out all of the assumptions with regard to our revenue forecast and how we were confronting it. And we're currently right now working on plans to respond to fiscal year 21. Again, that begins for us in October, and that's really my current worry right now, is how long that commercial consumption will impact our revenues and the kinds of things that we'll do in order to react.
Have you seen any pickup yet? From what I've been reading in the economic news, that there's some type of a minor upswing. Do you see that?
Yeah, we've seen a bit of it. It actually also corresponded with there is some commercial activity in the district. Restaurants have been doing takeout. Some restaurants have been doing takeout for a long time. In the last couple of weeks, the mayor has also allowed for outdoor seating as long as it's spaced 6 feet apart, all those kinds of restrictions. Coincidentally, about that time, the weather got warmer, and we generally see an increase in consumption when the weather gets warmer. So some of it is hard to really figure out what has caused the slight increase in consumption. And just for perspective, at one point in May, our commercial consumption was down 37%. So I said it was about 33%. That's where we've seen generally. It was down as much as 37%. By the fourth week in May, it was down by about 26%. So it compared to our baseline, consumption had increased. Corresponds to what we think we see as additional economic activity, but also the.
Let's talk about your reserves a little bit. Your board policy is 4 months worth of cash.
Yeah, it's 120 days worth of operating expenditure. 120.
And your current level is well above that, right?
It is. We have about 250 days for cash, and have had that. We've been in that position since about 2014. We have that also includes a rate stabilization fund of about $61.5 million. Yeah, we maintain.
And you haven't had to go into that.
We haven't. And I'm advising both the executives within BC Water and also the board that we don't tap that right now. There's so many unknowns about COVID, what's going to happen with the economic situation. We have produced a forecast for fiscal year 21 that we're working to respond to right now. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an economist. I watch the news like everybody else and understand that there could be another spike in the fall. I'd like to hold on to those reserves for risks that could occur as as we progress through a really
As we
uncertain
kind of wrap up, you want to talk a little bit about your capital and debt, and if you've done any refinancing or issued more debt and things along that line?
Yeah, we did. Early in COVID, we did a private placement. So we did take advantage of conditions with that. We're also looking at our capital program for possible adjustments, depending again on the revenue situation. We are planning to do our next new money deal in about a year. Had planned for that to be about $300 million again to support the infrastructure investment in water and sewer infrastructure. We may need to downsize that a bit, more in the $200 million range. Again, it's gonna depend on revenue. We're a AAA rated agency by S&P. We have access to the capital markets. I just want to make sure that we have a financial plan that can work, and so that's why we're working through the process we are right now. We're developing a 21 revenue forecast and then coming up with a solid plan.
It seems like just talking to you that one of the major things that you've got is just the median age of some of your infrastructure. Just the age of it. That's a big problem.
It is. Yeah, the median age of our water pipes is 79 years old, and some of the sewer infrastructure is even older. And that really is an area that we've spent a lot of time talking to the board about a number of years, taking them out to see the infrastructure, talking about the kind of risk it could pose to the continued economic vitality of the district. So it really is an area where we need to invest. Unfortunately, because it's not consent decree or it's not permit required, that is one area that we may pause on. Again, given the revenue situation, but it's certainly when you don't plan a capital project that's not needed, and so everything that we put forward in that 10-year, we do a 10-year CIP is work that needs to be done. The investment in the water and sewer infrastructure, though, they need to pause on it a little bit.
Okay, Matt, I want to thank you, and this will wrap up our conversation with Matt Brown. I'm John Fishbein. And I want to thank you for joining us. Thanks again, Matt.